The United States needs to be involved in this rebuilding effort to ensure stability in the region for all people.
The stage was set for a classic media showdown. A room full of reporters, all armed with their best shots, ready to corner Karoline Leavitt in front of millions. This wasn't just any White House press briefing. No, this was one for the history books. And the target? Leavitt's defense of Dan Bongino's controversial FBI appointment. What could go wrong, right? Well, as it turned out, a whole lot.
Some of those Biden administration officials, what they even tried to do.
And then when I got to the podium, I realized the president is delivering on everything he said he was going to do, which makes my job as his spokeswoman easy because I'm not working for...
You could feel the electricity in the room as the press corps filed in, armed and ready. There was no doubt about it. Today, they thought, would be the day they got Karoline Leavitt to stumble. They had their questions prepared, their arguments set, and their smug expressions locked in place. They thought they had the perfect trap for her, and the target was none other than the FBI's new appointment under Dan Bongino. The plan? Corner Leavitt about the appointment and its qualifications.
In the engagement with Putin and the Russians, the president has made it clear always that both sides need to talk equally.
The moment the briefing began, CNN's political correspondent wasted no time. He dove in with an almost smug expression, certain he had the upper hand. How could someone without current FBI experience possibly be qualified for such a critical leadership position? He demanded. The crowd waited for Leavitt to falter, to backtrack, to stammer an excuse. But that's not what they got.
Due to the delay on the tariffs was the president of Mexico committing to putting 10,000 permanent soldiers on the U.S.-Mexican.
Instead, Leavitt looked the reporter dead in the eye, leaned forward slightly, and calmly replied, "Before I address that, I'm curious. Has anyone here actually listened to Dan Bongino speak about the corruption he witnessed inside the FBI during his time in law enforcement?" The room went quiet. The very reporters who had strutted in ready for a confrontation now had no comeback.
Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans.
It was a moment straight out of a playbook no one saw coming. The press, who thought they were on a mission to make Leavitt squirm, suddenly found themselves scrambling. They hadn't even done their homework on Bongino. They had come prepared with accusations, but lacked any understanding of the man they were questioning. Leavitt had flipped the script effortlessly, making the journalists' questions seem superficial, lazy, and uninformed.
Transgenderism and wokeness across our federal bureaucracy and agencies.
A bad choice? Is it a tough choice?
Then came the knockout punch. MSNBC tried to regain control by questioning whether Bongino's appointment undermined FBI institutional knowledge. But Leavitt wasn't having it. "You're assuming the FBI gets to decide who runs this country," she shot back, her voice steady but laced with conviction. "Let me remind you, the president is the one elected by the American people, not the FBI." The press corps was visibly taken aback. That wasn't the answer they were expecting. Not by a long shot.
Absolutely. As a mother, you want to be with your child 24/7. You have that maternal instinct.
Leavitt wasn't just defending the appointment. She was challenging the very premise of Washington's power dynamics. She wasn't afraid to address the elephant in the room, the unelected bureaucracies that have, for too long, influenced the nation's decision-making processes. In one fell swoop, she exposed the media's bias while defending her position with the force of someone who had prepared for this moment her entire life.
You're about to enter one of the most high-profile positions in the U.S. government. How do you prepare for that?
As reporters shuffled nervously in their seats, Leavitt continued. The president's vision isn't about appeasing the bureaucracies that protect their own interests. It's about doing what's right for the American people. The challenge was clear. If you believe in accountability, you have to accept that sometimes outsiders are exactly what Washington needs to shake things up.
I never imagined this, but I love my job. I'm so honored and humbled to be the press secretary for...
But Leavitt wasn't done yet. She had clearly done her research, and she was more than ready to take on the next round of attacks. A Washington Post reporter, trying to claim Bongino's appointment as unprecedented, was immediately met with Leavitt's counterpoints. "Let me remind you of past FBI directors who came from outside the Bureau," she stated calmly. She wasn't just defending Bongino. She was dismantling the narrative the media had carefully crafted.
For quite some time now, and he's a great boss, and I feel very excited about this opportunity because he has an
And the media? They were getting more uncomfortable by the minute. The confident smirks that had dominated the room earlier were now replaced with skepticism and frustration. Leavitt was methodically picking apart their arguments, forcing them to confront their own biases and failures.
And when I got to the podium, I realized the president is delivering on everything he said he was going to do, which makes my job as...
When another reporter tried to claim that Bongino's appointment was politically motivated, Leavitt cut him off with surgical precision. "Let's talk about the documented political bias that has infected the FBI's upper echelons in recent years," she said, leaving the room stunned. There was no denying it. The mainstream media had been complicit in allowing these biases to persist, and Leavitt wasn't afraid to expose them for the world to see.
Energy here in Washington, D.C. The whole world is on President Trump's side. It really feels that way.
It was like watching a chess match unfold in real time, with Leavitt making all the right moves, while the press frantically searched for a way to regain the upper hand. As the questions became more desperate, it became clear that the tide had turned. Leavitt wasn't just the press secretary, she was now the one in control.
Even in the legacy media, even the Trump haters, they will tell you the approach has been much different, not just for me, but the entire White House.
As the journalists started to panic, trying to shift the focus back to the FBI appointment, Leavitt continued her dismantling spree. Where was all this concern when James Comey was leaking classified information to the press? She asked, her eyes scanning the room. Where was your outrage when Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were conspiring against a democratically elected president? The silence that followed was deafening. The reporters had no answer, and Leavitt wasn't going to let them off the hook.
About what the truth is versus what the fake news narratives are, and then just bring that to the podium. And we got to see...
She continued, pressing the media's failure to hold past administrations to the same standards they were now applying to President Trump. The American people have seen how these so-called experts can be weaponized for political purposes, she said, her voice steady, but every word cutting deeper into the media's credibility.
On visas, but, hold pro-Hamas sympathies.
The president is open to deporting individuals who have broken our nation.
The room was now a different place. Journalists who had walked in confidently, ready to take down the administration, were now scrambling for cover. Some avoided eye contact, others frantically flipped through their notes in search of a lifeline, but no one could regain control. Leavitt had done what no one else had managed to do before. She had flipped the script on them and exposed their hypocrisy.
Receive data from DHS and from ICE every single day. From what we hear on the ground, ICE agents are feeling...
The final blow came when a reporter from The Hill tried to steer the conversation back to the issue of government inefficiency. But Leavitt, with the precision of a skilled strategist, turned their accusation of chaos on its head. "That's not chaos," she said, her voice unwavering. "That's leadership." With those words, she stripped away the narrative that had been dominating the press for so long and exposed the stark difference between real leadership and the bureaucratic failures of the past.
The illegal surge of deadly drugs and of human beings that we have seen trafficked over the southern border and the northern border.
It was as if the room had been shocked into silence, realizing just how thoroughly they had been outmaneuvered. And Leavitt wasn't done. She continued to dismantle the press's arguments, challenging the very premise of their attacks. Her confidence was unshaken, and every response was a direct hit that left the journalists without answers.
IG report from the Social Security Administration, there was $71 billion worth of fraud in one single fiscal year.
In the final moments of the briefing, Leavitt delivered a challenge that would be remembered for years to come. "If you want respect, start earning it," she said, her words ringing in the silence that had overtaken the room. It wasn't just a challenge to the media, it was a call to action, a demand that they be held accountable for their own failures and biases.
Peter.
Caroline, very quickly, just following up on the question on immigration first. President Trump, during the course of the campaign in 2024...
Leavitt had done it. She had taken on the media, the press, and the very powers that tried to challenge her with their carefully crafted narratives. She had exposed their hypocrisy, their double standards, and their selective outrage. And in doing so, she had redefined what it meant to be a White House press secretary.
That you can't even identify.
Well,
What I can tell you
just to be clear, since you guys haven't identified, let's do it together, just for Americans at home.
As she gathered her materials and walked away from the podium, there was no dramatic exit. No slamming of doors or grand gestures. It was just the confident stride of someone who had done exactly what she set out to do. Take on the media, expose their lies, and walk away victorious.
Human beings. And you saw President Sheinbaum already conceding and putting 10,000 troops permanent.
So what does this mean for the future? For the media, this was a wake-up call they never saw coming. Karoline Leavitt had outclassed them in every sense of the word. And for Dan Bongino's appointment, it wasn't just defended, it was validated in the court of public opinion.
We can incorporate local news, non-traditional voices, podcasters, social influencers, and so we'll be taking a...
But one thing is clear. The media has been put on notice. Karoline Leavitt's performance that day wasn't just a victory for her. It was a victory for every American who's ever been fed up with biased reporting and selective outrage. Now the question remains, will the media change? Will they learn from this? Or will they continue to peddle their narratives unchecked? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Leavitt truly destroyed the media's narrative? Or was it all just a temporary victory? Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more of the latest on this saga and other breaking stories.